So, welcome. We're going to talk about microplastics, or Nurdles, and how we potentially inform the public about what they are and maybe how we can not have them be around in our environment. So as I shared on Friday, Nurdles are these small lentil-sized pieces of plastic that all other plastics begin as, okay? They can be in different colors. They're usually kind of round shaped, but most of the time we tend to see white or clear ones. Billions of Nurdles are used each year in order to make all other plastic products. So that means in the manufacture of other plastic products, a lot of Nurdles, as they're being shipped via boat, train, or truck, are oftentimes lost into the environment all around the world. So I want you to take a moment and think about the plastic items that you have on you right now. Maybe that's your pencil. Maybe that's the end of your shoelaces. Maybe that's the earrings that you're wearing. Maybe it's a plastic fork sitting in your backpack from lunch. Okay? We have lots and lots of plastic on us at all times. And the amount of plastic someone used to have was once kind of a sign of like how well your family was doing. Plastic was seen as this new material of the future in the 70s, 60s, 80s. So we thought we were doing really well with this plastic here. To give you an idea, we have a picture of two items there. One is a yogurt container. That's the pretty standard like Chobani Oikos yogurt container. And you can see to go make that one container, 357 Nurdles were used. Okay. If we take a look at our Ziploc bag there, and that's a standard sandwich size Ziploc bag, 314 Nurdles went into that. Now, I'm going to pass around my own bag of Nurdles. Please, I'm going to ask, don't open my bag, but you're welcome to feel these. These are all Nurdles that have been collected at recent field trips and micro beach cleanups. But you can get an idea of what they look like, what they feel like. I'm just going to, again, ask, please don't open my Ziploc bag. Nurdles are the second largest source of primary microplastic pollution worldwide. Okay. We've got some statistics for you, although I'm going to also show you another website that you can go to get a lot of this information. So 445,000 tons, more than that, of Nurdles enter our environment worldwide annually. That's every year. And so this graphic kind of shows you the different mechanisms and ways that Nurdles can enter in through the environmental system. So we go ahead and we start with Nurdles at their source. So Nurdles are a plastic. In order to make any plastic, we start with petroleum products, essentially oil. Okay? From there, we can then separate. A barrel of crude oil has different constituents or different parts: gasoline, natural gas, petroleum, etc. We can then refine that petroleum into our Nurdles, and then they get shipped all around the world, again, through truck, through train, on boat. And oftentimes they are uncovered. So they get kind of blown off of a train, or if something happens, if that boat gets caught up in big waves or big surf, right, some of those Nurdles can kind of fall overboard. But remember, Nurdles are lightweight, small, and they float. So they tend to stay in the water column for a really long time, confusing organisms, until eventually those Nurdles get pushed up onto shore, onto the sand through wave action. They're staying in that water column, though. And this is also that we can make any other plastic item out there. They all start as those pellets until they reach the manufacturing plant, where they're fed into a machine, superheated, molded, maybe even blown out. If you've been to like Sawdust Festival and you watch them blow glass, okay, it's that same idea. Now we can feed these plastic pellets into a machine, blow really hot air through it to force it into your cool sandcastle mold that you had when you were 3, 4, 5. Maybe you have one now. This is some data that I just pulled. So this is data from last year, so 2024. And it's a map worldwide of where nurdles have been found through citizen science. So let's see if my clicker is working today. It is not. But you can locate us there in California. We have 2 points, green and orange. Green is pretty good. There were some times where we didn't find any nurdles. Yay! But there have been other times where we have found 30 to 100 nurdles. That's just what's been found. It doesn't mean that's necessarily what's out there. It means that's what's been found. Someone had to go out actively searching for these things. And the way we do that is we dig through the surface layers of sand, we sift through it, and then we try to decide, is it a nurdle or not? Sometimes the nurdles look like other things, or other things look like nurdles. Small dried bits of a couple of months ago when we had the by-the-wind sailors, the Velella, the little jellyfish, when those dry up and shrivel, they kind of look like white cellophane. And lots of students in those field trips thinking, is this a nurdle? Nope, it was not. They'll pick up a piece of rock or quartz sand and be like, is this a nurdle? Nope, it is not. So, how many nurdles did they not pick up thinking it was just a rock? Okay? This is all self-reported data from citizen scientists all across the world. So as I said, nurdles are easily mistaken as food. And so the problem becomes with a graphic like this. So take a look at that picture. Raise your hand if there's anything on that picture that you yourself have consumed. Lobster, crab, fish, shrimp. Anyone eat those things? Okay. Now, if those organisms have consumed other organisms or different planktons, zooplankton, phytoplankton that may absorb those nurdles. Now imagine each one of those white dots in those images are nurdles. That means you have now consumed that microplastic as well. And the idea of these microplastics are really any toxins moving up a food web from lower trophic levels to higher trophic levels is called biomagnification. It's where this toxin gets amplified up through a food web. This is biomagnification is different than bioaccumulation. Bioaccumulation is when a toxin or a microplastic stays within a single organism. Okay? So if a single shrimp continues to eat contaminated zooplankton with microplastic and then it stays within their system, that's bioaccumulation. It stays in one place. If it gets moved up through food levels, that's biomagnification. So a lot of the issue here with these microplastics is the level of biomagnification going on. It's only been in recent years, in the last 2-3 years, that scientists for the first time ever are detecting microplastics in the breast milk of nursing mothers. So babies born with less than a week of life are already being exposed to these plastics through the breast milk of their mothers because of some of these issues of biomagnification. Okay? So it becomes trapped within the stomach of these organisms, never broken down. Okay? It does also confuse the organism because organisms are running on instinct. As long as their stomachs feel full, they don't hunt and eat. Okay? So if that plastic is never being broken down and it's sitting in their digestive system, they're thinking, I'm good, I've got plenty of food, I've got plenty of nutrition for me to do the stuff I need to do to live. But that's a false idea for them because they don't have the nutrients that they need to actually survive and do what they need to do. So they will slowly waste away and die. Some of those organisms may be commercially valuable to us. If you're a crabber, a shrimper, if you're a commercial fisherman, okay, and those fish or organisms are confused thinking they have plenty of nutrition and they start to waste away and die, that's going to impact your wallet. Some of these plastics, some of these nurdles can slightly break down, I'm going to show you that on the next slide, into even more toxic materials as well. Okay? So these nurdles have both indirect and direct effects on ecosystems and the organisms that live there. Okay. So as I said, sometimes these plastics can break down into something even more toxic, especially when those plastics stay within a saltwater system. Saltwater is highly corrosive, and then you add the extra factor of UV radiation from the sun. that will actually start to break down some of the plastic into even more toxic secondary pollutants, okay? Which again, is not something we want to be exposed to. So the additional UV rays, oxygen, wind, and wave action do start to break down these a little bit, but it never breaks it down far enough into its elemental components. We're never going to be able to break down plastic into carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, those basic atoms that then life could reorganize for biological purposes. Okay, so that is the difference there. With some of your macroplastics, some of your larger plastics can still get broken down into smaller pieces, right? This is just like the idea of you taking a big sugar cube, putting it into your iced tea, and stirring it around to make smaller sugar pieces, okay? But it's never gonna get actually broken down into its constituent elements, right? The basic carbon, hydrogen, oxygen kind of stuff. So, we talked about how that could be damaging to organisms in terms of confusing their bodies for nutrition, but it can also be physically damaging. If they start to swallow something with sharp edges, because it's broken down into weird ways, it could do damage to the lining of their esophagus, to their intestine. It could cause physical blockages within their systems. There's all sorts of awful videos, right, of seabirds like albatross, gulls that have been found dead on the beach. And then they go in and they do a necropsy, right? They do an assessment of those organisms. They cut them up and they're full of plastic, okay? They will even feed their babies the plastic, not realizing it is not nutritionally valuable for them. Those are some of the toxins associated with plastic. We talked about DDT at one point, okay? That's the one that hurt a lot of the birds in terms of thinning out their shells. DDT was something really common in the United States. It's great for preventing malaria. We used to spread it around in school, so if you were here at Laguna Beach High School in the 60s, 70s, maybe they would do it once a week where they'd be like, okay kids, everyone go stand out in the quad and just spray you down with DDT, literally. And you were like, yeah, this is great. We didn't realize how much damage it was doing to the environment, okay? And there's all sorts of videos of that. PCBs is found in a lot of plastics as well. PCBs can lead to birth defects in developing organisms. So the type of toxin that's known as is called a teratogen, okay, because it can lead to birth defects. It affects hormone imbalances and things like that as well. It is now illegal to have PCBs or phthalates in plastic, and a lot of companies try to make you feel better as a consumer. Buy our water bottle. Yes, it's a plastic water bottle, but it doesn't have PCBs in it. We're green, we're good for the environment. It still is being made out of Nurdles though. It's just a slightly different chemical component of those things. As we said, Nurdles are made from other petroleum, or made from petroleum, and therefore we still have to dig up oil to do that. Think about all the habitat destruction that goes into digging for oil and the use of those fossil fuels. So now you've amplified that problem by also using Nurdles to make your plastic products. The surface of Nurdles can also act as a biofilm. If you look at those Nurdles, and where are my Nurdles? Where's my bag of Nurdles? Somewhere in the crowd. There it is. If you were to look at those Nurdles underneath the microscope, they're slightly craterous and porous. They have dimples and things, and it's really easy for a lot of different bacteria to start growing there, and it creates these kind of mats called biofilms of different toxins and bacteria that can now sit in the ocean, okay? Which again will add to that confusion for organisms that will now start to eat those things. So when you look at things like toxic red tides and algal blooms, maybe some of those things are deriving from Nurdles within the system. So the whole point of your PSA is to think about that call to action. What is that behavioral change you want in your audience? The number one thing I can say about Nurdles is this is a global issue. So yes, one person can start to make a difference through our daily actions, but we need lots of people to start making these changes. And the biggest thing we can do is make more conscientious choices as consumers. We thought about all the plastic that we use in our daily life. What adjustments could you make instead? Does anyone have an idea? What could we buy instead of something with plastic? What choices, what can you do right now today? Yes?
Reusable things.
Use what?
Reusable containers.
Reusable containers, like what?
Reusable water bottle.
Well, the water bottle you're holding right there, right, the green Gatorade one, that is plastic. And that's not a shame, okay? Those do have some good use, but those plastics will still eventually leach and start to slightly break down. The worst thing you could ever do, and I always told my students, I'm gonna see if I can pick on this one a little bit. Can I see your water bottle, please? Okay, so this water bottle. No, again, this is not a shame. This is an education, okay? This water bottle is not meant to be reused, okay? Some of you maybe do. You're like, I'm gonna be a little bit better for my environment. My mommy and daddy already paid the $2 for this bottle, but I can use it a couple of times. Or, raise your hand if you're that person that's like, I play sports, I do things after school, and I need to drink lots of water, but I always forget to carry mine. So I just keep a case of this in my trunk. Or I just left it in my car and I'll like come drink it afterwards. So this is sitting, warming up in your car. That UV rays are breaking down these plastics and now leaching toxins into your water. Yum, that sounds great. Don't reuse these, don't wash these, really don't buy them, okay? We can use reusable other materials. What are some reusable other materials we could use instead? Metals. Metals are much better, easy to clean. Who gave me my metals? Who said metal? All right, so I've got some metal straws for you to share with your friends. What else could we buy instead?
Cardboard.
Oh, see, now suddenly you're all like, yeah, she's giving out stuff. Silverware. Rather than metal silverware, I've got some bamboo silverware for you, even in its cute reusable pouch. Yes. Okay. What else? Glass. Glass is actually a great material to use. Do you know why glass is so much better even than the metals? What is glass made out of? Rocks and sand. So, ready, gentlemen? As much as we don't want glass on our beach, glass will get broken down into its constituent components, into its atoms, okay? And can be recycled and reused within that nature system. Yes, it can be a danger to people if we step on the glass, but it will get broken down. Now, unfortunately, I'll give you a choice. I've got toothbrushes, I've got shampoo. So, we can get rid of shampoo bottles and instead buy bars of shampoo instead. I love my bars of shampoo. They're way better to travel with. They still make a really nice lather. And they take up less space in your luggage. Okay? So, the things you have control over is your actions as a consumer. Okay? What do you buy or choose not to buy? Okay? All those things can help. Tighter legislation when it comes to recycling. Recycling in most of the United States is a joke. What I mean by that is a lot of our materials are mixed materials. So if you think, oh, I'm doing a good job, I recycled my plastic container from my lunch, it's probably going to end up in the trash. Any recycling that's contaminated with food needs to be washed out first. So unless you're rinsing out your clam shell after your salad before you put it in the recycle bin, it's probably going to end up in a landfill and trash. Okay? Mixed materials. If you enjoy that Capri Sun pouches have plastic, metal, and paper in them. So unless you're separating all those layers, it's going to end up in the trash. Okay? Not all states have access to recycling. But sometimes states, cities, counties trick you as a consumer and try to make you feel better and say, I put it in recycling, pat on the back, yay me. And then they just put it in the same landfill and dump as everything else. So could we have tighter legislation and regulations on that? Could we still make recycling easier? There are many counties and states that do not even have the ability to recycle at all. They don't have a pickup, they don't distribute bins, nothing. Here in California, we're pretty progressive with a lot of that, right? We had recent legislation even requiring composting across our state, okay? But that has not gone into full action in all counties yet. I still know there are counties that don't have a waste barrel for organic composting. Where I live in Laguna Hills, we do. In my street of maybe 25 houses, I maybe see 2 or 3 compost barrels out every week. My compost and my recycling barrels are one of the first things filled. I make very little trash in my house personally, but I make lots of the other stuff, okay? Having this education and this awareness of these micro beach cleanups. So again, if you're interested in this topic, I have lots of data that 6th grade students have gathered when they visit Laguna Beach. We make them do, or we ask them to do, a micro beach cleanup where we can actually see what beaches have the most nurdles. So for example, right now, it'd be really interesting to see what's going on with the amount of nurdles in Aliso Beach right now. You guys know what's going on in Aliso Beach? It just happened last night.
Sewage spill.
Yeah, sewage spill. So Aliso Beach all the way down to Table Rock, right? That whole section of beach is closed until further notice because of a sewage spill. So what else may be washed up because of that contamination? Right, lots of garbage. Could be some nurdles, right? It could be other toxins that we're worried about. We definitely don't want to be in the water anytime after that. So if you want to look at some of this data, maybe you use this to hook in your audience and give them some legitimate science, let me know. Okay? So my email is there for you if you need any access to this data. If you want to take a look at any pictures, I'm happy to provide that to you. I do have a little bit of swag left, okay? So if on your way out, here's what you have access to. I've got a couple of bamboo toothbrushes. They're just as good as a regular plastic toothbrush, okay? You should still change them out every 6 months, okay? Their container is all recyclable. So I've got some of those here. I've got some Nurdle stickers for you, and I've got a big Nurdle gym bag if you want to take that as well, all right? Thank you so much. I'll stick around if you have any questions for me. Thanks for being here today.